The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. All right, welcome. This video is predicting that 2 dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan in New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on March 22nd, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this email. As we can see, it was composed on March 1st. Okay, you can see it was composed on March 1st here. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward this to you. However, I fail to see how in the world you could be confused or skeptical given the post date of the video. So this is an amazing video that I'll be explaining here. The information will be truly profound. And I've titled it The Doomsday Clock, but it is about more than just that. But the first thing to talk about here is the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. This is the organization, if you will, that is known for putting forth annually its Doomsday Clock, which refers to the amount of time humanity has left before the nuclear winter, the nuclear bomb, World War III, etc. So that's the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. All right. And this year, they put the clock to 89 seconds before midnight. The inverse of 89 is 0.01123. That is because, or rather I should say, God has embedded within the number 89 this profound, important number. 1123, because the 188th prime number is 1123. 188 is very important in God's signs, as from the Strong's Concordance, H188 is the word that means woe, exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. Okay? If you've watched any videos on this channel, you've probably heard me say that many times. This number 188 being very important. That's why 1123 is also very important in God's signs, because it is symbolic of 188, which is symbolic of woe, exclamation mark. Now, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists Doomsday Clock came out on January 28th, 2025. And this date is 53 days before the predicted dirty bombs, or perhaps a suitcase nuke. Dirty bomb being made of nuclear material, so that's how it's related to the atomic scientists' doomsday clock about nuclear bombs. Now, 53 is the other number that God uses to embed what I was just talking about, because the inverse of 53, 1 divided by 53, is 0.0188. All right? So, from the day of the Doomsday Clock, which is about nuclear bombs, and dirty bombs contain nuclear bomb material, from this day, January 28th, it is 53 days to the predicted dirty bombs, dirty nuclear material bombs. 53 embeds this woe symbolism because the inverse is 0.188. On this day, the clock was set to 89 seconds before midnight. 89 also embeds this same thing, because the inverse of 89 is 0.1123, and that's, as I explained, a number that God uses in exchange for or symbolism for 188. I'll just repeat it one more time. We've got a woe connection from the date in terms of number of days, and the date itself was when they set the clock to a woe number. That's astounding confirmation for this prediction. Only God could have designed something like this. This is so beautiful. Now, let's get into the next thing. So, Jimmy Carter, who is symbolic in God's signs of Methuselah in the Bible, Jimmy Carter was the oldest living president. Methuselah was the oldest living patriarch in the Bible. And the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. So it was known, recognized in God's signs a long time before Jimmy Carter died, that his death would be symbolic of this, because Methuselah died right at the beginning of the flood judgment, which is why his name means when he dies, destruction. So we've known for a long, long time that when Jimmy Carter dies, destruction of America. And so I'm about to explain now how the death of Jimmy Carter connects to this prediction of destruction in New York City. And by the way, Manhattan is symbolic of the Manhattan Project, which developed the first atomic bomb, which is why the name the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. All right, now, so Jimmy Carter, Methuselah, died 89 days after his 100th birthday. So we were just talking about the number 89. Jimmy Carter died 89 days after his 100th birthday. His 100th birthday was prophetic also because he was born in 1924 and died in 2024, 100 years. The reason why this is the case, and we knew that he would die in 2024 because of this. He ended up dying 2 days before the end of 2024. So he died as close as possible to the end of 2024, essentially. And that's because 24 and 24, as in 1924 and 2024, hints at 2424. The 24th word in Strong's Greek Concordance, which is the word Jesus. Jesus is G2424, 2224, or sorry, 2424. The 2424th word, 24th word in the Greek Concordance is Jesus, and that's why Jimmy Carter was born and died in the years ending in 24. Because Jimmy Carter, JC, hints at Jesus Christ. So that's the significance of the 100th birthday, which is also confirmation for the significance of adding 89 days after that. So in other words, what we have here is Jesus Christ woe. Of course, we are talking about his second coming, which will be the biggest woe of all of history. Of course, the events leading up to it are also filled with woes because of the destruction, which is what the name Methuselah means, and Jimmy Carter is Methuselah in God's signs. So, again, we have this amazing connection, or rather interesting thing about how Carter died 89 days after the 100th birthday, and that's because of the significance of what I already explained regarding the 89, number 89. It is a woe. As I explain again, 1 divided by 89 is 0.01123, which is the 188th prime number, and H188 in the Hebrew Concordance is the word woe, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. The coming prediction for the dirty bombs will be a woe, judgment from God. Carter spent 89 seconds. And this is why this is relevant. Carter spent 89 seconds inside. Now, this was a typo. I'm going to correct it later. So I'll just read it. Bear with me, okay? Carter spent 89 seconds inside the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor in the second state. There was an evacuation from 3 Mile Island in the second state. The predicted evacuation from Manhattan Island, as in 3 Mile Island, they even rhyme in a way because of the letter M, will be on the date 3/22. George Washington was inaugurated on Manhattan Island. Washington was born on the date 2/22. 3/22 will be 2 months and 22 days after the death of Carter, Jimmy Carter, Methuselah. Okay, so the part that's true, and I'll explain, just bear with me, is that the follow-up to the warning of judgment on 9/11, when the 2 planes struck the 2 towers in lower Manhattan, will be this prediction for the dirty bombs, the 2 dirty bombs, as in 2 towers, 2 planes, right? And through the 9/11 events, as I've explained hundreds of times in other videos, God was pointing to George Washington. This was like, the reason why I explain it over and over and over again is because this is the foundation of God's signs. His true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. Just briefly, after his inauguration on Wall Street in Federal Hall, he marched down Wall Street into Trinity Chapel and consecrated the nation to God, saying that if the nation were to ever turn away from God, it would lose its divine protection and blessings. And he knew more than anyone that was the truth, given he saw the hand of God during the military operations during the Revolutionary War. He knew firsthand the hand of God on America. So anyway, the only building that survived the falling debris at Ground Zero was this chapel that Washington said this in. The chapel is today nicknamed the Miracle Chapel, and it was saved by the 70-year-old sycamore tree that was uprooted, sheltering the chapel from the debris. Today, there is a 20-foot high bronze statue of the roots of the tree outside of the chapel. That's because in Isaiah chapter 9:11, regarding the warning from God regarding the raid of the ancient Assyrians, the world's first documented terrorists, and the terrorists on 9/11 came from the same region of the world, regards in Isaiah 9:11 the uprooted sycamore trees. Okay, and the tree was 70 years old because the Jews, after they didn't heed the warning in Isaiah 9:11, were exiled. As promised by God, the Israelite kingdoms were destroyed and they were exiled to Babylon for 70 years. Okay, so God pointed to George Washington through the 9/11 events. He was pointing to the warning that Washington gave, because that's what happened on 9/11. Its blessings and protection were temporarily removed on 9/11. Since 9/11, America has not returned to God. It was raised exponentially even further away from God. And so the point is that Washington was born on the date 2/22. And God was warning through Washington about this destruction, and the location of the warning was in Manhattan, and the coming prediction is also for destruction in Manhattan, which is why the prediction is 2 months and 22 days, as in 2/22 George Washington, after the date that Methuselah died. And his name means when he dies, destruction. Of course, I'm talking about Jimmy Carter. So you see how that 2 months and 22 days connection is relevant. Now, what's also very interesting is that 3 Mile Island was in the second state. But there's more to that. I'll get to that in a second. But the prediction is for the date 3/22. So let's move on. I have more to say. So, correction. Although when he was president, Carter visited a nuclear reactor on 3 Mile Island, it was actually reactor number 2. and it was in the second state. So that I just jumped ahead. So as I just mentioned, I couldn't resist it. It was 320. It is 322 that we are making this prediction for, and Carter went into reactor number 2 in the second state on 3 Mile Island. That's obviously a 322. Okay, so although when he was president, Carter visited a nuclear reactor on 3 Mile Island 4 days after it partially melted down, he spent 89 seconds inside a nuclear reactor when he was in the Navy in 1952. Carter, a trained nuclear engineer, worked in development of the first nuclear-powered submarine. And God uses firsts for signs in general. And so Carter was a part of the development of the first nuclear-powered submarine. This is more nuclear symbolism regarding Carter. And again, we are connecting Carter's death to the predicted nuclear bomb material, dirty bombs explosions for the date 322. Okay, so Carter was in 2 nuclear reactors, and he also was involved in the development of the first nuclear-powered submarine. The Navy sent Carter to Ontario, Canada, to assist with disassembling the damaged core of a reactor. By the way, again, Carter died 89 days after his prophetic 100th birthday. And that's because he spent 89 seconds inside the nuclear reactor. In fact, there was a story in the 2000s regarding how Carter was complaining that he still, from a test done on him, was showing still him having radiation exposure from the time that he was in the nuclear reactor. Back in 1952, when they didn't know as much about what they were doing. Okay, so he was exposed for 89 seconds. That's why he died 89 days after his prophetic 100th birthday. So he was in there for the purpose of disassembling the damaged core of the reactor. It had exploded and sent radioactive material escaping into the atmosphere, and millions of gallons of radioactive water flooded into the reactor's basement. Carter was part of a team of 3 people, as in 3 Mile Island, that went into the reactor. This wasn't on 3 Mile Island, though. He would later, as the president, visit a reactor again. That's a coincidence. This man is involved prominently in 2 nuclear reactors. One of them with 3 people, the other one on 3 Mile Island. So Carter was a part of a team of 3 people that went into the reactor. Carter was the 39th president. The Canadian reactor exploded exactly 339 weeks before the explosion of the nuclear reactor on 3 Mile Island, which the 39th president visited shortly after. The 3-person crew and the 39th president, as well as 3 Mile Island and the 39th president, confirms this exact 339 weeks connection between the 2 nuclear reactor explosions. Right? The 2 nuclear reactors that Carter was involved with exploded exactly 339 weeks apart, and Carter, and this hints at Jimmy Carter, because 339 is broken into 3 and 39, and again, Carter is the 39th president, and he went in with a team of 3 into the first reactor, and the second reactor was on 3 Mile Island. That's astounding. Now, Carter visited 3 Mile Island to assist with the explosion of Reactor 2 in the second state, as I just explained earlier. This makes the explosion and evacuation from Manhattan Island hint at the predicted explosion and evacuation from Manhattan Island. Okay, sorry, I made a typo there. This makes the explosion and evacuation from 3 Mile Island hint at the predicted explosion and evacuation from Manhattan Island on the date 3/22. Because again, it was 3 Mile Island, the second reactor, reactor 2, in the second state to join the Union. That's 3/22, and we are talking about this prediction for the explosions and evacuation from Manhattan Island on the date 3/22, 2 months and 22 days after the death of Carter. Crew visited 3 Mile Island and Reactor 2 in the second state. The author of The Sum of All Fears, Tom Clancy, I think his name, a novel about a nuclear explosion while the president attends a Super Bowl, died on the 89th birthday of Jimmy Carter. Carter died 89 days after his 100th birthday and spent 89 seconds inside a partially melted down nuclear reactor. 89 hints at 0.01123, and the first attended Super Bowl by a sitting president on February 9th, 2025 is 11.23% of a year before the predicted nuclear explosion or dirty bomb explosions in New York City. So there's lots more to this story, prophetic story, and connections and confirmations for the significance of the Sum of All Fears and this year's Super Bowl. I'm just touching on one little thing here regarding that. And if I have time, or I do intend to make another video regarding the other evidence or the other things that God has done regarding this year's Super Bowl and how it points to, among other things, and there are many things that it points to, the coming prediction for the explosions in New York City, which is again 11.23% of a year, which is 41 days. And okay, so that again is a woe. I explained that. So, and the reason why it's a woe is because the inverse of 89 is 0.01123. So I'll repeat this though. The reason why this all connects to the author of The Sum of All Fears, which is about a president that visits a Super Bowl in the city that, while he's visiting the Super Bowl, explodes in a nuclear bomb explosion. All right, that's the plot of this novel. A president at a Super Bowl, okay? This author of this book, this famous book and movie, The Sum of All Fears, about a president at a Super Bowl at the time of a nuclear bomb explosion. This author died on the 89th birthday of Jimmy Carter. And that's huge because of what I have been explaining, which is that Jimmy Carter died 89 days after his 100th birthday and spent 89 seconds inside a partially melted down nuclear reactor. So from this Super Bowl, which was attended for the first time by a sitting president, just like in the movie, we have this 11.23% of a year connection, which is so relevant because of the author dying on the 89th birthday of Jimmy Carter, and the inverse of 89 is 0.1123. So this is astounding. You know, you could make a video on this in itself, but not really, because you need to have the background regarding the significance of the number 89, which I just explained. So anyway, whoa. This is astounding confirmation for this prediction. That's an understatement. It really is no words for this. The oldest living person in the Bible was Methuselah. Carter, the 39th president from Georgia, became the oldest living president on the date 3/22 in 2019. Okay, again, the prediction we are talking about is for 3/22 this year, but Carter became the oldest living president, a major milestone in Carter's life, and it's prophetically significant. That was on the day, well, that's because that's the big reason why, or one big reason why Carter is Methuselah in God's signs, because Methuselah was the oldest living patriarch, and Carter was the oldest living president. But the day that he became the oldest living president was on the date 3/22 in 2019. Now, this was exactly 39 years, and Carter again was the 39th president. The day he became the oldest living president was exactly 39 years after the Georgia Guidestones were built. And again, Carter, of course, is extremely known for having been from Georgia. Unlike other presidents, he is associated with where he is from. And I mean that to a large degree. No other president is associated with where they're from like Jimmy Carter is. That's why this is relevant in the signs here. Georgia is Jimmy Carter. Now, so anyway, he became the oldest living president in Georgia. He would have been in Georgia at that time because he never really left Georgia. He lived his entire life in a small town of Plains, Georgia, other than when he was in the governor's mansion and the White House. And that's for prophetic reasons. Plains, Georgia, which I explain in other Jimmy Carter videos. Anyway, he became the oldest living president in Georgia exactly 39 years after the Georgia Guidestones were built. Now, the Georgia Guidestones are the Antichrist 10 Commandments. They are written on these massive tablets, and there are 10 of them, 10 of these guiding principles or whatever they call them. But it's a mockery from Satan of the 10 Commandments, is what it is. Right? They are these leftist New Age things about humanity, etc. Okay, so the predicted bombs in New York City will be on the date 3/22, exactly 2 times 3 years after Carter became the oldest living president. Okay, and again, that date was 39 years after the Georgia Guidestones. That's relevant because that's the reason for 2 times 3 years, because it hints at the number 23. And one reason why God uses the number 23 in his signs is for symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist, because it changes a person's 23 pairs of chromosomes. And the mark of the Antichrist is part of the secular left humanism religion, which is what the Georgia Guidestones are about. Okay, so 3/22 in God's signs, this isn't the only example. In other words, it was recognized long before it was known that the bombs would be predicted to occur on the date 3/22, that God was using 3 and 22 in his signs for what I'm about to explain, because it is symbolism for Genesis 3:22. Again, this wasn't learned after realizing that the bomb will explode on the date 3/22. The opposite is the case. So Genesis 3:22 is symbolism for the coming lie of immortality without God through the things that changes a person's 23 pairs of chromosomes. Okay? So the things in the near future will be said to give a person an extension, age reversal of life, age reversal and immortality, which will be the big lie at the end of the age that is the exact same lie, the very first lie ever told to Eve in the garden, which is that she shall surely not die after eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and disobeying God. And so that's why Genesis 3:22, which is where God comments on this regarding this quest for immortality without him, and that's the big lie. All right? Transhumanism technology, the thing that people have been taking, you know what I'm talking about. And so that's part of this bigger picture pattern and why God is using the date 322 for the predicted beginning of the destruction, if you will, with these dirty bombs. All right, and that's all related to Jimmy Carter through the Georgia Guidestones. That's why, again, the Georgia Guidestones connect to Carter becoming the oldest president on the date 322, exactly 2 times 3 years, as in 23 pairs of chromosomes before the date of the predicted dirty bombs. And if the Georgia Guidestones had 2 tablets, it would also hint at 2 dirty bombs. Well, anyway, the 10 Commandments were written on 2 tablets. So that's why all this connects. That's why this is relevant. Because again, the Georgia Guidestones are this secular humanism, New Age religion lie that is leading to this transhumanism and New Age, new spirituality religion, consciousness religion is what you could also call it. And there will be this lie promised to those who take the mark of the Antichrist. So I think I've explained it now. All right, so that's how it all connects to Jimmy Carter. There was an enormous amount of information and prophetic connections that were learned last summer regarding the 45th anniversary of the release of the movie Apocalypse Now that cost $45 million. I explained this so many other times in other videos. Much of the connections connected to Carter, as Carter is Methuselah, whose name means when he dies destruction, as in Apocalypse Now. In other words, the movie's name Apocalypse Now is essentially the name Methuselah, because when he dies, as in immediacy, as in now, destruction, as in apocalypse, right? So the Lord also creatively revealed that 45 hints at its inverse, 0.022. Now, finally, it seems to all come together. The release of the $45 million Apocalypse Now movie on August 15th, 1979 was 2 months and 20 days, as in 0.22, before the Georgia Guidestones were built on 3/22 in 1980. The destruction, as in Methuselah, will now begin exactly 45 years later on 3/22/2025. Again, the prediction for these nuclear material dirty bombs and the evacuation from Manhattan Island for the date 3/22 will be exactly 45 years after the Georgia Guidestones. But God was, in a prelude to this, hinting at this 45 years connection between the Georgia Guidestones and the destruction in Manhattan that's predicted through the 45th anniversary of the movie that cost $45 million and infamously cost $45 million. I mean, that's a big part of the movie's history, and the story of the movie is the making of the movie and how it went way over budget in the era of what was called the, I forget it now. Oh well. I forget the name, but I'll just, I guess, try to describe it. But there was an era of movie making in the 70s where all of these new directors, the baby boomer generation directors, were given essentially a blank check from the movie companies to make the movies that they wanted to make because of the track record that they had been having with their prior movies. I'm talking about like Stanley Kubrick and Francis Ford Coppola, who made Apocalypse Now. And anyway, that's why this movie went so, and at the time, $45 million was a huge amount. Anyway, so that's a part of the story, and that's why the 45th anniversary of it too is relevant. And on the 45th anniversary, we had the Apocalypse Now movie, Prophetic Signs. Martin Sheen starred in the movie, and on the 45th anniversary, Martin Sheen shook hands with President Biden out on the White House lawn for everyone to see. And the reason for that is because of the coincidence of Martin Sheen also having played President Bartlett in the West Wing TV series. So the president on TV shook the hand of the president. Now Bartlett, the most best-selling type of pear is Bartlett pears, and this was the day of the big Matthew Perry sign regarding the arrests of those who had been supplying him with his ketamine. And how is that administered into a person? Through things, which is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, thing that is used to put the substance inside of people, right? And it was the ketamine queen. The arrests were in the same neighborhood as on that same day, the death of Perry Kurtz. Okay, the arrests for Matthew Perry. Perry Kurtz was a famous comedian, and let's see. He was a comedian, a well-known comedian. He died in a hit and run, and Kurtz, because the villain's name, played by Marlon Brando in the movie Apocalypse Now, is Colonel Hertz. All right? Now, Colonel Kurtz, same name, same exact name. Colonel Kurtz, Perry Kurtz, on the same day as the Matthew Perry sign. Okay. Now, the reason for the shaking of the hands is why that's prophetic is because of the making of the movie Apocalypse Now documentary made by Francis Ford Coppola's wife, Eleanor Coppola. It's titled Hearts of Darkness, the filmmaker's apocalypse. It won awards. It was a critically well-received documentary. It's very interesting. The making of the movie is very interesting. And one of the big things about it is that the iconic scene in which Martin Sheen in the movie and his character cuts his hand in the hotel room. But it was actually real, and it was not intended. He punched the mirror in the scene and accidentally cut his hand and then went with it, spreading the blood around all over the room and the bed sheets and everything and around his body. So this was an improvised scene that was not scripted. And that's quite something, real blood, etc. And it was his hand that was bloodied. That's why the handshake with the president who enforced the mark of the Antichrist that affected people's blood through the things, which is why, again, the Matthew Perry sign regarding things on the same day. So that's the reason for the prophetic handshake, because of the bloody hand in the movie Apocalypse Now. Okay, so that's just a little bit about what happened on the 45th anniversary to confirm all of the analysis, because we knew way ahead of time that the 45th anniversary of the movie Apocalypse Now would be extremely important, and then we received the relevant prophetic signs. Now, the number 22 is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, because the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist is described in the book of Ezekiel, which would have been a Tav mark, which is the last letter in the Hebrew alphabet and the 22nd letter. Also, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are also symbols for things, and the mark, the Tav letter, is a symbol for a mark. Also, the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, which is the 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Also, the mark of the Antichrist changes a person's chromosomes, and chromosomes have 2 arms, and they come in pairs, and so 2 and 2, as in 22. And so, also, the inverse of 45 is 0.022. So that's why we had, as I just explained, these mark of the Antichrist signs. In other words, the bloodied hand sign with him shaking the president, and the day of the ketamine arrests, and ketamine is administered into people through a thing. All right, so we had all of that, and so it was clearly mark of the Antichrist symbolism, especially given the fact that it was on the 45th anniversary, and 45 is a number that God uses to hint at the number 22, which symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. All right, so now again, the predicted bombs are expected to explode 2 months and 22 days after the death of Carter, and also the 45th. The movie that cost $45 million, which ends at 0.022, was released 2 months and 20 days, which gives us a 22 and a 0, which ends at 0.022, before the Georgia Guidestones were built. And it just explained how the Georgia Guidestones connect to the day that Jimmy Carter became the oldest living president. But now we all can also see that the Georgia Guidestones were built exactly 45 years, as in 0.022, before the date 322, when it's predicted that the 2 dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan. Put another way, the relevant signs on the 45th anniversary of the $45 million Apocalypse Now are 2 months and 2 months and 20 days, as in 0.022, before the predicted destruction on 322. Okay? So again, the release of the movie connects with the official beginning of the Georgia Guidestones, but also the prophetic signs on the 45th anniversary of the movie that cost $45 million also connect with 2 months and 20 days to the date of the predicted 2 dirty bombs in New York City. And that's relevant because 2 months and 20 days hints at 0.022, and 45, the inverse of it, is 0.022. Now, also, by the way, let's see, I think I'm just going to say it right here. So, no, I'm not. So the 45th anniversary of, let's see, no, I got it. I'm going to include it right here. Okay. Additionally, this is why the signs on the 45th anniversary, as in 0.022, of the $45 million movie. Now, 9 of the 45 million was spent on promotion, and the 45 is the 9th triangular number. In a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 9th row is 45. Okay, so that's another confirmation, because in other words, the 45 is symbolic of the number 9 as well. And furthermore, God pairs 22 and 9 together in his signs to confirm the signs and connections. So this number 45 not only hints at 22 and 0.22, but also the number 9. Okay, now, and that's interesting too, because 9 million of the 45 million that it was cost to make the movie was spent on promotion. Now, these signs on the 45th anniversary of the movie that cost 45 million, Apocalypse Now, was also the 79th anniversary of Victory Day in 45, as in 1945. And 79, as in the 79th anniversary, is the 22nd prime number. Okay? That's amazing. Again, the number 45 is all about hinting at the number 22, but this anniversary of this 45th anniversary of the movie that cost $45 million is also the 79th, as in the 22nd prime number, anniversary of Victory Day, when they defeated Japan, when Japan surrendered, in 45. In the year 45. And what is Victory Day about? It's about nuclear bombs. And what is this video about? It's about the prediction for the detonation of the nuclear bomb material bombs. Now, P. Diddy posted his victory video. This was in the beginning, shortly after his 2 Mansions were raided. Oh, I just realized that. That's actually also a hint at 2 dirty bombs. Wow. See, whenever I go through the information while I'm talking it into a video, I always find something new. Now, it was symbolically 2 mansions that were raided just prior to him posting in defiance. Now he's in jail, but he was in defiance at the time of the charges, and that's when he posted his victory video. And it was before he posted his victory video that I recognized that God was pointing to the movie Apocalypse Now and its 45th anniversary. Because I recognized, here's how it happened. It was, let me see, I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was March 25th that the news broke that P. Diddy was being indicted, okay? And then on the date 4/5, which is what I'm getting at, he posted his victory video on the date 4/5, April 5th, which was a very prophetic day for other signs as well. Okay, and that was confirmation that God was pointing to the 45th anniversary of the $45 million movie. But I mean to emphasize that it was confirmation because prior to him posting his victory video, I had already recognized the significance of the 45th anniversary of the $45 million movie because of P. Diddy's indictment. Because P. Diddy's indictment caused me to look into P. Diddy's career, which I was not very I was not, informed about. I don't know. I'm getting a little tired, I guess. I need to eat some lunch. So anyway, he was indicted. It caused me to look into his career history, and I spotted how he had made one of his songs was named Victory. Okay, I was being led by the Holy Spirit. I noticed how one of his songs was named Victory, and I thought, well, that's a prophetic name. I wonder what this could mean. I looked into that and discovered that the video for Victory is the big thing about the song Victory, how he made this video. The video is an apocalyptic video. Okay, it stars P. Diddy, and he's being chased through an apocalyptic streets in the night. It's definitely a hint at the movie The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it also stars Dennis Hopper, who plays the president in the video. And he's like, I think he's the president in the video. He's the leader, and he's the president, but he's a bad guy in the video. And anyway, because it's the apocalyptic, time or whatever, I don't know. But the point is that it's an apocalyptic video, and it stars Dennis Hopper, and that made me think how Dennis Hopper starred in the movie Apocalypse Now. And so then I looked into Apocalypse Now and found out the things that I'm talking about. What I did find was that the 45th anniversary of the movie was August 15th, and I had known since 2017 that August 15th, 2024 was a very, very important date because of a prophetic sign in the night sky, the conjunction of Mars with Jupiter in between the horns of Taurus. That's another story. So it's one of these dates that I knew the longest in advance. And I knew that it coincided with the 9th of Av, and it would be the 30th anniversary of the day that the comet hit Jupiter in 1994 on the 9th of Av. And it was comet Schumacher-Levy 9. And Jupiter symbolizes the king, and in the Bible, 30 years symbolizes a king. So that's why 30 years later to the 9th of Av in 2024, that was known way back in 2017, right? And again, part of that knowledge was the conjunction between Mars and Jupiter in between the horns of Taurus, which is symbolic of war, and that's what also could be symbolized, if you will, with this coming prediction with the dirty bombs being exploded in Manhattan. In other words, what I'm saying is all of this connects because that August 15th date, which was all about the number 45, including P. Diddy now, as I'm explaining, because he posted victory video on the date 4-5. And 45 is all about 0 and 22. And this date, August 15th, is 2 months and 20 days, which is 22 and a 0, before the predicted dirty bombs. And the conjunction between Mars and Jupiter would be symbolic of that. Wow. I just realized that now. And I've again known about this sign in the night sky since 2017 and how important it is. But I did not recognize, because Mars is symbolic of war in ancient astrology, which God is using, because the Jews also followed ancient astrology also, and God uses this. And so this is symbolic of war. It's in the horns of Taurus, because the constellation Taurus in ancient Hebrew or Semitic astrology was the coming judge, which is the second coming, which is another reason for the inverse of 45 being 2. It's 2 into infinity, by the way. It's 0.2222, right? And so that's symbolic of the second coming. And this is so amazing. This is so amazing. I'm now realizing how we get what August 15th, 2024 was all about. It was about adding 2 months and 20 days to this prediction, which, by the way, will be on the day of a sign in the night sky, which is how I first discovered the date 322, because the light bulb went off from God's signs. The inspiration was recognized. It was recognized through God's signs that the dirty bomb, and I've known about the coming dirty bomb and the evacuation from Manhattan Island since 2019. All right. But it was recognized that finally it was revealed through God's signs that the timing of it would be on a half moon, because of the signs involving half moon. And it made sense that the half moon, because I already knew that God was pointing to March 13th as a step. Before I recognized March 22nd, I thought actually the bombs would explode on March 13th. But I knew in the back of my mind that that didn't quite make sense, because why would the bombs explode on the day of the prophetic sign in the night sky? The sign would be something that would come before the actual event. And so anyway, I knew that God was overwhelmingly pointing to March 13th in terms of this prediction for the explosion of the dirty bomb and the evacuation. And so once it was recognized that, no, it's not the actual full moon, blood moon, lunar eclipse that God is pointing to with these moon signs, it's actually the half moon. Because although I recognized the moon symbolism, it was actually, there was a number of them involving the half moon. And so I was like, you know what makes more sense? Is that the blood moon, full moon, lunar eclipse is actually a step, because that's how God's signs works, these steps, which is, by the way, what August 15th, 2024 is, a step. And so it was recognized that, you know what makes more sense is that the God pointing to the blood moon, lunar eclipse would actually be a step to the prediction for the bomb and the evacuation, and that therefore it would be the following half moon. And so I looked it up, and and the half moon is on March 22nd, and I recognized, well, wait a second, that's part of this theme that God is using, including the Jimmy Carter, as I've been explaining in this video, regarding 3 and 22, pointing to Genesis 3:22. So that immediately hit me as like, well, that's interesting. We have not only this half moon, that's the first half moon after the prophetic blood moon, but it's also this prophetic number, 3 and 22. Which again is associated with Carter, which again is associated with, as I didn't really explain, I don't think in this video, but the August 15th signs, which I'm now connecting. So that's the full story for you there. Now, This is all, so this video here, how it all comes together, this is months and months and months and hours upon hundreds and hundreds of hours of studying and analyzing and producing other videos that are talking about steps, which end up being failures in the eyes of people that don't know what's going on because I didn't predict correctly. But in fact, every single date that I predicted was 100% correct because they ended up being steps. And that's how God's signs works. And when this prediction comes to pass, it will prove that this is how it works. And so all the steps that I was predicting ahead of time because God was pointing to them will be proven to be 100% true. And therefore, what I am also making the point with this is that you should go back and watch those other videos because they are all 100% true. And the purpose for God doing these steps is to elaborate more and more and give so much more information that can't be explained in one video about one prediction, one date. In other words, God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is for the purpose of drawing in all of this other information that can be told through the stories that God is able to tell through connecting these dates that are steps, including the story that I've been telling in this video. This video wouldn't be possible without these other steps in the trail of signs leading to the prediction for the dirty bombs. This information is extremely important, and so that's why God has done this. He's elaborated, he's developed his big picture of signs with an interconnected web of steps in the trail. And in order to make these steps, it has to be pointed to with these signs, which can be confusing to the interpreter as being the actual date of the prediction, but in the end, they end up being a step instead. Just like August 15th, 2024, as I've now explained, a massively important date. And now it all comes together, including live as we were speaking, because it's really all come together as I'm making the video. Speaking of the making of Apocalypse Now, I'm making this video and it's all coming together because it's 2 months and 20 days, which is the 22 and a 0, and the August 15th signs were all about 45, which is the inverse of is the 0 and 22. Okay, so now let's continue here. This is such a profound video. Make sure you share this with everyone and don't ever stop sharing it, including in places you don't normally go, in order so that people on the other side and hear about this information and we don't just preach to the choir. Okay, so the P. Diddy posted his victory video on the date 4/5. That was amazing because I already knew about P. Diddy's prophetic victory video, as I explained in the other videos that I made many months ago regarding all of this. Okay, now, so let's see. 2 days after the 9 arrests, so the August 15th signs, the 45th anniversary of the movie that cost $45 million, was 2 days after the 9 arrests of Jews protesting Israel. In other words, leftist Jews that are very confused, on the 9th of Av, which was August 13th. Okay, and they were arrested because they shut down the I-405, which is another hint at 45. In other words, this was a step on the trail 2 days before. The 9th of Av was a step on the trail. Again, 45 is the 9th triangular number. On the 9th of Av, we had the 9 arrests on the 9th of Av because they shut down the 405, which hints at 45. Now, this was on August 13th, and that in turn was 2 plus 2 days, and this was recognized prior. In other words, August 13th was recognized prior to it as being 2 plus 2 days after August 9th. And this, now I'm just outlining the trail. August 9th was recognized to be important because it was 2 plus 2 days after August 5th. And August 5th was recognized as being important because it was 2 plus 2 days after August 1st. And that pattern engendered a 4 plus days pattern of trail of signs, which hinted at the 444-day Iran hostage crisis. In fact, the beginning of the trail on August 1st was about the exchange of hostages, I think with Russia, and between the US and Russia, if I recall. Okay, prisoners, which are essentially hostages. Now, I'm just elaborating a little bit more about the trail here. But the point I'm making too is because we're talking about this significance of the number 22, and August 15th is part of this pattern of 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, as I just explained, right? We had the 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 days, and then the 2 days to August 15th, which is just more confirmation, which is how it works, of the 2 months and 20 days to the day of the predicted dirty bombs. I should say 2 dirty bombs in New York City. Okay, and yeah, I think that's clear. Carter became the oldest living president on the date 322 in 2019, which again hints at Genesis 3:22, and this was 3 months and 22 days after George Bush died, who at the time was the oldest living president, as in, again, Genesis 3:22. Okay, so that's amazing. Because again, 3:22 is all about this quest for immortality without God, symbolism. And that's why the oldest living president, which is, symbolic of aging, right, died 3 months and 22 days before the date 3:22 when Jimmy Carter became the oldest living president. In other words, that's just amazing confirmation of the significance or the relevance of Jimmy Carter and what we were talking about, which is that Jimmy Carter symbolizes Methuselah, etc. God pairs 23 and 44 to confirm his signs and connections. And if I didn't explain yet, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 23 and 44. And I know this because I have been studying his big picture of signs from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 7 years. And one basic reason why he pairs 23 and 44 is that the basketball president who wore 23 in high school was the 44th president. Now, okay, so the 44th president who wore number 23 visited George Bush at his home 3 days before he died. This 3 months and 22 days connection between the death of the oldest living president at the time and the day that Carter became the oldest living president on the date 322 is also exactly 4 times 4 weeks. That's amazing because the main theme or the big thing, so God pairs 23 and 44 in his signs because it's a tool he can use to develop his big picture of signs. You have to obviously limit the number of numbers you can pair together in order to make them relevant. You can't just pair numbers just randomly, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't recognize the pattern. And the reason why these numbers are the numbers is because they reveal the identity of the Antichrist. Now, God wouldn't need thousands of examples, and literally that's the case, of pairing 23 and 44 to simply reveal the identity of the Antichrist. That's why it's a tool that God uses to develop his big picture of signs. Because of the theme of the Antichrist, which is part of this theme of the promise that's coming of being able to reverse aging and immortality without God through taking the mark of the Antichrist, which is again symbolized by Genesis 3:22. So, but the point is too that we have this 3 months and 22 days connection to the date 322, as I explained, and this is also 4 times 4 weeks, which hints at the Antichrist, the 44th president. But in turn, and this is where we pair 23 to the 44 here, because obviously 4 times 4 weeks hints at 44, the date that Carter became the oldest living president on the date 322 in 2019 is in turn exactly 2 times 3 years, which hints at 23. That makes the 2 times 3 years connection even more relevant. I already explained earlier how it hints at the 23 chromosomes, and I should say 23 pairs of chromosomes, and we were talking about a prediction for pairs of dirty bombs. Well, anyway, that, as you can see, this 2 times 3 years pairs with the preceding 4 times 4 weeks. Okay? And Methuselah, and it's also, again, this 2 times 3 years gets us to the date 322. Now, Methuselah was also the oldest living patriarch in the Bible, and the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. Not quite certain why I put that last sentence in here. I guess just a reminder that that's what this is all about. Because the coming prediction for the dirty bombs in Manhattan will be this when he dies, destruction. And again, it'll be 2 months and 2 months and 22 days after Jimmy Carter died. And all right, so I'm really glad I recognized my error here before I completed the video. I was talking at length and I was getting really excited about it, how the prediction for the two dirty bombs is 2 months and 20 days after the apocalypse now, a 45th anniversary of the movie that cost $45 million, and the inverse of 45 is 0.022, a 0 and 22, and that would be confirmation for the 2 months and 20 days connection. However, that's a typo. It's 220 days. So all of the analysis is still the same. It's exactly the same. It was just a typo. It's 220 days, which is even slightly more amazing, because again, 45 is about hinting at 0.022, and that's what 220 hints at. All right, so it's exactly the same thing, but just even slightly more amazing. So what I was saying here, I was about to finish up the video, but I've just recognized at the last second that I recognized the typo. Because what I'm saying is that the predicted dirty bombs in Manhattan, the two of them, are 2 months and 22 days after the death of Jimmy Carter. And I explained why that's relevant earlier. And also, the predicted two bombs in Manhattan are 222 days after the 45th anniversary of the movie that cost $45 million, Apocalypse Now. As in destruction now, as in Methuselah, Jimmy Carter. When he dies, destruction. Okay, wow. I just discovered something so huge here. This video is so amazing. It's so profound. It's so important. It's just been learned that the day of the partially melted down nuclear reactor on 3 Mile Island and the evacuation from 3 Mile Island on March 28th, 1979 was exactly 4 times 5 weeks before the release of the movie Apocalypse Now, which hints at 45. The movie Apocalypse Now cost $45 million, and it connected with 45 years to the signs that I explained in this video, which again are in turn 220 days to the date of the predicted nuclear material dirty bomb explosions in Manhattan, the destruction. Carter's name means, Methuselah means destruction. So Carter's connected to the nuclear material through the nuclear reactors, and his name or his death means when he dies, destruction, because he was the oldest living president. And the two are combined here. The nuclear material disaster on 3 Mile Island and the evacuation connects with 4 times 5 weeks exactly, which hints at 45, to the release of the movie that cost $45 million, Apocalypse Now, which is in turn 45 years to August 15th, and the signs that I explained in this video, including the Apocalypse Now signs that were expected in advance. And then it's 220 days, and that's extremely relevant because the signs on the date were mark of the Antichrist signs, and the number 22 symbolizes the mark. But also the 45 in all of this hints at the inverse again, which is a 0 and 2 and 2, which is why 220 days to the predicted dirty bombs The nuclear material bombs, 2 of them. So, it's just amazing. And Carter visited the nuclear reactor 2 plus 2 days after that, after it exploded. Oh, wow. So it all is full circle. Carter really is all about this, as I explained at the very beginning of this video. With him dying 89 days after his 100th birthday and him being in the reactor for 89 seconds, and the author of the movie Sum of All Fears and the nuclear explosion at the Super Bowl and all that, him dying, the author, on the 89th birthday of Carter, and on and on. It's all about Carter, and it ties in the 3 Mile Island disaster with the movie Apocalypse Now, which ties it all together through the signs on August 15th and the 9th of Av, and everything, to the to this 3/22 date, which is also all about Carter, as I have explained. Wow. Because I thought, just after I closed the video here, I thought, wait a second. There's got to be a way to connect Carter to the movie Apocalypse Now that's more direct. I mean, there's another connection. Well, kind of. It's not precisely Carter, though. But the Apocalypse Now was released 11 weeks and 4 days before the date 11/4, which was the beginning of the 444-day Iran hostage crisis, which coincided with the last final 444 days of Carter's presidency. And of course, one of the big things about it was that hostage crisis. But and Iran is also symbolism, incidentally, for nuclear material. Present-day Iran, with its quest for a nuclear bomb and the issue over its nuclear material refinement, right? And that's amazing too, actually, because Carter is all about that too, Iran. But I thought, well, anyway, Carter did visit the site of the 3 Mile Island reactor. He was a nuclear engineer involved in the development of the first nuclear submarine. So the nuclear disaster connects to the movie Apocalypse Now. And then again, that it connects to the predicted explosions in New York of the nuclear material bombs. Wow, this is going to happen. This is the end of the trail. I mean, I've thought that before, of course, because God points to, I would be highly, highly surprised if March 22nd is just another step and we receive some relevant prophetic signs. We will definitely receive relevant prophetic signs if it is only a step. I mean, March 22nd is being pointed to, but it can't be just another step based at this point, especially given the half moon connections also. So this video here may be the most important video because it really does explain this truly profound story that God's been telling through all that I've explained in this video, in specifically Jimmy Carter. It also just occurred to me something else here, which is that this prediction for these dirty bombs on March 22nd will also in itself be a step in the trail of signs that's leading to the other bigger destruction, which is coming this August, which is the prediction for the asteroid that will hit Earth in the Indian Ocean, and the worst of the seismic effects from the asteroid hit will be felt on the other side of the globe, which is the United States, North America. So that's predicted for August 31st. It's been known before even the date August 31st was discovered to be the date. It was known that God was pointing to August 23rd as being a step. Well, I should say that it wasn't clear at the beginning that it was a step, but it is a step because obviously August 31st comes after, and other things confirm it since the discoveries. And so anyway, August 23rd, it was a very important date. It's symbolic. The 8 and the 3 in the date 8/23 point to Revelation chapter 8 and Isaiah chapter 23, which both allude to America. And I explained that in other videos, and I'll explain it much more in the future. So this is an important date. there have been other very important prophetic signs that have occurred on the state in the past. For example, the Washington, D.C. earthquake. Washington being symbolism for America, the capital. And that was in 2011. And so anyway, August 23rd, 2025, a step in the trail that's leading to 8 days later, and the predicted asteroid hit. Well, actually, I believe at this time that the asteroid will hit on the 31st in the Asia time zones and the 30th in North America time zone. So,
all right. What
I'm saying, though,
that's important,
relevant
that I forgot to get
is
into,
that August 23rd,
here,
this important
regarding
step
all of this, earlier in the video I
days
mentioned
after
P. Diddy
March 22nd.
and his 2 mansions,
And that's amazing
that were
beyond
raided
words
by the FBI,
because of what I have
and how
explained
that
in this
led
video.
me to discover his victory
156
video
hints at 9/11.
and
The 156th
that's what led me
prime number
to
is
discover
911.
the importance of the
And so God
anniversary
uses
of
this
the
number
release of the
156
movie
for
Apocalypse
symbolism
Now.
for the 9/11 events.
And then,
the
as I
big
mentioned
warning of
earlier,
God's
P.
judgment and
Diddy
destruction,
posted his
which is
victory
now coming
video
because America did not
in
heed the warning.
defiance on April 5th, the date 4/5.
So what's making
which
this
was amazing
also
confirmation for what I
relevant
had
and what
prior
confirms it?
or previously
Well,
learned,
first of all,
which is the prophetic
the predicted
significance of
events
the
for
45th
March
anniversary
22nd
of the
will occur in
Apocalypse
Manhattan,
Now movie
the
that
location
cost
of the
$45
$9/11
million
events.
to make.
And what I am saying here is we have a 9/11
And so,
connection
what happened also
between
on this
the
date,
predicted
4/5,
destruction in Manhattan and then the big
was
destruction
that
for
the
America coming
Uranus
this August.
building in Taiwan was demolished.
But also, as I've been explaining
And
in this video,
that was part of another trail
the
of
big
signs. That
revelation
actually was
is that the
exactly
signs on August 15th, 2024
4,444
are
percent of the
220
year
days before the
after the
predicted
first
two
day
bombs in
of the
Manhattan
444-day Iran
220
hostage crisis,
is a 9/11 number.
which coincided with the
It
final
was two
444
towers
days
that were
of
110
Jimmy Carter's
stories
presidency
each that
in order
collapsed
to point
in
to
God's
the
judgment.
44th president. Okay.
There's reasons why those numbers,
This Uranus
including 220.
building that was
but
leaning
that's a 9/11 number.
on a 20.
Let me just
well,
explain that.
Some
then.
most
Joshua,
media
who led
articles
the
say
Israelites
on
around
a
the walls of
45-degree
security
angle.
before they collapsed in God's judgment.
I'm not sure if it was actually
died
a
at the age of
45-degree
110.
angle, but regardless.
And so
that's what
110
the,
symbolizes the
news
collapse
articles
of
say.
America's walls of security.
The news articles
And that's
talk
why
about
it was
45-degree
110
angle,
stories that
and it's
collapsed.
the date 4/5
And then
that
engendered
it
the
was
small
demolished.
earthquake that
This
cracked
was
the
the iconic
foundation
building.
of Federal
This
Hall
building
on
came to
Wall
symbolize the
Street, as in
devastating
the walls of
earthquake
security
in
that
Taiwan
collapsed.
in April
And also that's why
2024.
Trumpet called into Channel
The
9
strongest
television
earthquake there in
TV
25
news station
years.
and trumpeted
25 is
inadvertently
the
how his
ninth
tower on
semi-prime
Wall Street had
The number
become
9 is the most
tallest
important
tower
number in
Lower
God's
Manhattan.
true big picture of
And the
signs,
Israelites
patterns,
blew
and
trumpets
connections, which is
before the
only
walls of
being
security
explained on this
collapsed.
channel as from the Bible.
Okay,
The number 9
so
symbolizes
110
God's judgment.
symbolizes Joshua because he died at the age of
And
110 after
on
leading
this
them around
same
the walls
day,
of security before they
April
collapsed.
5th, the news
But also
in
Joshua
Taiwan
led the
was
Israelites
that
into the
9
promised land
people
on the
were
date
rescued
110 in the Hebrew
from
calendar.
the
Nissan 10,
cave system
110.
in the national park.
And that's also what the
named
110 stories
9
symbolize.
turns.
But
The
the
9 turns cave
amazing thing is that
system,
Jesus also officially entered
from
Jerusalem
which 9 people were
in his
rescued
first coming
as a result
in the
of
triumphal
the
entry
strongest
when he
earthquake
rode into
in
Jerusalem
the
on the
ninth
donkey, officially
semi-prime number of
fulfilling
years,
Isaiah chapter 9.
on the same day
the
as the
prophecy.
destruction of the
That was also on
Uranus
the date
building
110,
in Taiwan,
Nissan 10.
the
And
beginning
he
of the
officially
demolishment
arrived
of it
into
that was leaning
Jerusalem
on a
on this
45-degree
date
angle on
because
the date
that's the
45,
date
and
that the
45
Israelites
is the
crossed
ninth
over the Jordan into the promised
triangular
land.
number. In a triangle of numbers, the last number in the ninth
Okay,
row
so that
is
was
45.
also 110. And so Jesus'
this pattern
first
of
coming, in other
nines.
words, is symbolized
Well, God
by the
pairs
number
9
110
and 44
because the
together
date
to
110
confirm his signs and connections.
is symbolized by 110.
Because, and this is how God's,
That's
as
why
I've
we have
probably
two
mentioned already,
towers
this is
that
how
were
God's
110
true big picture of
stories.
signs, patterns, and connections
They
works,
symbolize
which is the principle of
Jesus'
second and third and
second
multiple witnesses
coming.
confirming a matter, as the Bible
It's
says is
2
required. And this
times
is
the
what makes
date
what is being explained on this
110,
channel
or
true and not a
110,
product of one's
if you
imagination,
will.
different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs in one
And
simple
so
way in which God
220
would provide a
days
second witness
from
for us,
the
as if we think about it,
big
through certain
important
pairing
signs on
certain numbers
August
together,
15th,
since
including,
9 and
as I
44. And I know this
mentioned,
because I've been
the
studying this big picture
conjunction
of signs from
between
morning until
Jupiter
night
and
for
Mars
full-time hours for more than
in
7
between
years.
the horns of
9
Taurus,
and 44
which was
because the
symbolic
44th
of
president was
Jupiter being
inaugurated
the
in
king
09.
planet,
the Messiah, and
So
the
we
horns
have,
of Taurus
anyway,
symbolizing
well, first of
the
all,
coming
also
judge,
the connection
which is
with the
Jesus' second coming.
4,444%
We
of
have
the year
220
to,
days,
this
which hints at the
4
second
and
coming
4-5 date. And the reason
of
why
Lord
I say that
Jesus
is because
Christ.
the demolishment of the Uranus
because
building
of, again,
began
the two
in
towers,
US
220
time zone on the
stories
date 4-4.
in total, symbolizing
And
the
so,
date 110
but
times 2.
But regardless, we have the 9.
other words, the
nine
second
people
coming,
rescued from
because
the
the first
9
coming was
turns
on the date
cave
110.
and the
So we
45
have the
degree
220
angle,
days
the
to the
ninth
two
triangular number,
dirty,
and the
predicted
strongest
dirty
earthquake
bombs.
in the 9th semi-prime number of years. Now,
And I will have to think about it.
the thing is that Uranus
This is purely
symbolizes
speculation in the
uranium.
moment,
Uranium
actually.
was
I haven't even really
named
thought
after
about it.
Uranus,
But I'm just remembering that I
shortly
once upon a
after
time,
Uranus
a
was
long time
discovered.
ago, did
and
think about it,
uranium
and I don't
is what
know
is
what
used
I concluded.
in
Obviously,
nuclear
I didn't
bombs,
conclude
and
much. It was a
this
long
is
time
all
ago.
leading to the predicted
But it just
nuclear bomb
occurred to me that
explosions.
maybe it's possible there will be two asteroids.
Okay, now the predicted nuclear bomb explosions
Both,
made
in
of
succession.
uranium. Sorry, the dirty bomb
Basically
explosions
at the
made of
same time.
uranium.
I'm not saying they'll be like spaced apart, like the two dirty bombs, right?
Uranus symbolizes
And what I
this.
mentioned
the
in
name
another
of the
video,
building was hinting at
Two
this.
bombs at the grave site of
Okay,
the Russian
and
Iranian
Uranus
general.
itself
Soleimani.
also
Anyway, that's a different video.
is
Sorry.
has an
So,
orbital period of
anyway,
84
we have
years.
the point is
And
we have this
the
astounding connection of
word
220,
bomb in Hebrew
which is a 9/11
is
number,
equal
the
to
220
84,
days that's been
as is the
explained
name Obama,
clearly in this
the
video.
44th
To
president.
the predicted two dirty bombs in Manhattan, the
And
location of the 9/11
also
events,
Obama was
and then
born on the date
156
84.
days to the predicted asteroid.
so
and 150, the
also on the
156th
same 4-5
prime
date,
number
April
is
5th,
911.
there was the
9/11.
rare earthquake in
Because
or
it
next
just
to
happened, I feel
White
like
House
sharing this with
Station,
you.
New Jersey,
Right when I said wow,
that was felt
and was
in New York
clicking
City and was described as
buttons to
feeling
stop
like
the
a
recording,
bomb had
I
gone
wasn't
off.
looking at the time until I did it. But right as I did it, in other words,
Okay.
my
On
finger
the
was
same
already in
day,
the process of
Biden
clicking before I realized
went
what was
to
going on.
the bridge in
I clicked.
Maryland
I said
and
wow
shouted
right
next to
right
it
at as soon as I said wow, I looked at
And
the clock,
about the
like right as I said it.
the deaths that
the
occurred
amount of
on the
time
bridge,
of the recording, which was
and
8
it was 2
minutes and
times 3
30
deaths, and
seconds.
God pairs
And by the time I
23
clicked,
with 9 and 44.
it was
These are the 3
8:31.
numbers God pairs
And
together.
those are the two dates that I just
because the
mentioned
basketball president wore
are
jersey
what I
number 9.
believe to be the
The
dates
third
of
23, I
coming
said, sorry.
asteroid.
And so
Okay, and I just
the reason why he
inserted this
shouted
amazing,
next to the bridge is
astounding,
relevant is because the bridge
profound clip
collapsed
regarding
and
how
the
all of this
walls of
connects to the
security of
predicted
ancient
asteroid
Jericho
on the
collapsed
dates
due to an
8:30 and
earthquake
8:31.
after the Israelites
And then when
shouted.
I ended that clip, that's what was the
Bible
time.
archaeology proves that the walls of
Unintentionally,
Jericho
completely.
collapsed due to an earthquake.
This sort of thing happens. I'll
Okay.
give you another example.
So
on the
and
day
he
that
left
I
the White House on the
learned,
same day
first
as the
learned
earthquake in White
through
House
God's
Station.
signs that he was pointing to August 31st,
Okay.
which therefore
So
made August 23rd a
all
step.
of this, P.
That
Diddy's
just
post
a few hours
victory,
later,
which by the way was 4
a couple
plus
of
4
hours
minutes
later
long.
or something.
That's the big thing
I was
about
at a
the
little
video.
tiny
It's a very
restaurant
long
on the
video,
street
and it's
here.
known for being long, and it's known
And
for
the
being
table I was at
exactly
was
8
right
minutes
facing
long.
the street.
All right,
And I was
I think
getting
it's
served
8
food.
minutes and 1 second.
And as soon
it's
as my
known for
food
being
arrived
8
and I
minutes
started
long.
eating,
Okay,
the
which is 4 plus 4.
electricity
the
pole
44th
across the
president.
street, like right there. 'Cause
Okay,
the
so we
table
have
was
the
really
P.
right onto
Diddy
the
post,
street.
we have the Uranus building,
just
we have the
few feet away.
9
in
people
other words.
rescued from 9 turns
It exploded.
cave, 45
With
degree angle,
fireworks
9th
kind of thing,
triangular number,
sparks
the
and
date
everything,
itself
and then
ends at
erupted into a
45,
massive
the date
flame.
45.
The whole
And
the whole post,
P. Diddy's
the whole wooden
victory
post,
video points to Apocalypse
all
Now,
the wires,
which cost $45 million
the
to make.
tent roof of a
All right,
nearby.
so you get the idea here.
business.
Now, the reason why I wanted to get
One
into all
in
of this is
flames.
that
Just
date,
exploded.
4-5, was exactly
All right,
4
right
times
as I
4
started
months.
eating, and I took that as
After
confirmation.
Sheriff
indeed,
Robert
August 31st
Luna
is the date.
of Los Angeles County was sworn in
One reason
as the
being is
34th
that
Sheriff
what's
of
coming
Los Angeles County.
after the asteroid.
34 is the 9th Fibonacci number. But
well,
this 9th Fibonacci
the asteroid will trigger the eruption
Sheriff of
Los
Angeles
volcanoes,
County,
including
named
Yellowstone,
Robert
which will
Luna,
emit ash
is exactly
into the
4 times 4
atmosphere,
months
which will affect
before
crops and then lead to the
the
food
bomb
shortage,
symbolism,
which will then lead to
on the date 4-5
the
because of,
enforcement
again,
of the mark
Uranus
of the Antichrist
being
through
symbolic of the
digital
bombs we're talking
programmable
about.
currency.
Okay.
And the 4 times 4 months
restricting the buying and selling of
and
food
that
to only those who have
which is
taken the
hinted
mark
at
of
with
the
4 times 4,
Antichrist.
pairs with the 9th Fibonacci sheriff.
And so that's why
and
I figure
the 45-degree angle and the 9 people rescued
explosion
from
of
9
this
cave on the
utility
day 45,
pole
which hints at
happened,
the 9th triangular
and
number,
and
etc.
the ball of flame and everything.
So that's
right as
overwhelmingly
I started eating.
confirmed. That 4 times 4
The
months.
food.
Now, why is
And it was
Sheriff Luna
just
relevant?
a couple hours after
well,
I first discovered
Sheriff
the date.
Luna on the 9th
In other words, it was
month
confirmation,
day,
in my opinion,
the 9th
from
day
God.
of the year,
And
2025.
What's also interesting is the following morning.
Again, 25 being
this
the
was in
9th
the
semi-prime
evening.
number. On the 9th day of
And,
the year, on the
the
day
fire
of Jimmy
department
Carter's
came
funeral,
and put out the fire, but
Sheriff
the work,
Luna said to the press,
cutting down the
day
wires and
after
fixing
the
everything
apocalyptic
didn't begin until the
burning of
next
Los
morning.
Angeles,
Now the next morning I
that
went out for
parts
some
of Los
exercise and I'd
Angeles
been out
looked
for about
like
an hour.
Atomic bomb
And,
had been
came
dropped
back
on it.
On my way back to where I
That was huge.
live, and
Because
right
another
as I
video
got
that
to
I
that
made,
place,
the Half Moon
on that
video on this
street,
channel, talks
that's
about
when the workers showed
Half
up
Moon Bay shooting
to
that
start
occurred just
fixing
after
things.
Sheriff Luna took
so
office
there was more
in
impeccable
California.
timing
The Half
to
Moon
confirm
Bay
that the
shooting was
previous
2
night's
days
timing was
after
also relevant.
the mass shooting, the second mass
And
shooting in
when
the Chinese
when the workers
community
showed
in
up,
California
I stood
in
there
2
and watched
days,
them for a while, and I
or
used
2 days prior,
coincidences to
which was on the
break
Chinese
the ice with a
calendar,
stranger
which was on the
and tell them
Chinese
about
Lunar New
the
Year.
predictions in God and everything.
And it's Sheriff Luna
And
that
so I
presided
believe it was
over
all
the
meant to be.
investigation over that.
And
'cause that
so
was in
anyway, I just thought I
Monterey
would add that, given
Park,
what I just
California,
experienced here with the timing of the
in Los
reporting.
Angeles County.
You could take it for what
So
you will.
Sheriff
This is
Luna-
nothing to do
Luna
with
is
the big
Spanish
picture
for
of
moon.
science. This is just a
He
personal
presided
thing.
over the mass shooting in the Chinese community
Believe
on
me,
the
I know
Chinese
far
Lunar
better
New
than
Year.
you how
And then
the
2 days
prediction
later
made in
in
this video
California
was
was the
derived.
Half Moon Bay
And
shooting
more
that
importantly,
took
I know
place
far
at
better than
2
you why
farms.
the righteous Christian
Two
God of the
farms, and they're
Bible
fact,
has
in
given
fact,
me a voice
mushroom
through
farms,
this prediction.
which hints at
If you are
mushroom
a
clouds that are
quote-unquote
produced by
Christian or
nuclear bombs
Muslim,
or
this
atomic
prediction
bombs.
was not learned
And
through a
Sheriff
demon.
Luna
Be warned
said that Los
blaspheming
Angeles
the
looked
Holy
like an
Spirit
atomic
is the
bomb had been
unforgivable
dropped on
sin.
it.
If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed
his
universal
disciples
collective
asked
consciousness.
him for the
If you
signs
are a
to look for
conspiracy
of his
theorist,
return,
this prediction was
Jesus
not
replied
learned
with the
through
metaphor of
figuring out
birth
a
pains.
supposed code.
And according to
that
the medical profession,
Illuminati
the average
and
human gestation
Satanists are
period is
using.
40 weeks,
This
which is why
prediction
God
was
uses
learned
40
through the
weeks signs
Bible
for
and
prophetic
through
signs.
watching carefully the
And
Lord's
from
prophetic
the
signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving
and
that
he-
Jesus
and he
Christ
used
is
the
the
metaphor
Lord,
of
the
birth
reason
pains
why
in
God has
context of
given me a
earthquake
voice through this
signs in
prediction
Matthew, in
is
the
to
book of
prove
Matthew.
that the controversial
And
things
so
that I
from
am
the
saying
earthquake,
in
the
the
prophetic
videos on
earthquake
this
that was
channel
felt like a
are
bomb
the
in
truth.
New York City,
Therefore, a wise person
on the
will
day of
want
these other
to watch
signs,
all of the
which
videos
was 4
on this
times 4
channel.
months after
What
Sheriff
I will
Luna
also do is create a video or two
was sworn
that
into
summarizes
office,
some of the
took office,
controversial things
was exactly
that the
40
Lord
weeks.
will
And so
prove
from
to
the
be
first day of
true
Sheriff
when
Luna's
the prediction being made in this video comes
becoming
to
the
pass.
sheriff,
I
it
will
was
leave
4
links to
times
these
4 months
must-watch
exactly,
videos
and then
in
exactly
the description
40
box
weeks
below this
to
video.
the day that Sheriff
Again,
Luna said
the
that
purpose
parts
of
of
this
Los Angeles had
that
looked
is
like an
from
atomic
God
bomb had been
is
dropped
to
on it.
prove these things that I will talk
If
about.
you're following, connecting the dots
And
here, what I'm
therefore,
saying is
it
that
would be
it's also the reason
not
the
watch
case that
the
Sheriff Luna,
videos
which
that
means
I will
moon,
leave links for
presided
in
over
the
the Half
description
Moon
box below
Bay
this
shooting
video.
that was followed by
Aliens
the
and
shooting,
UFOs are
or that
demons
was preceded by the
masquerading as
shooting.
aliens and
Sorry,
UFOs.
Sheriff Luna
Most
presided over
people's
the
spiritual
shooting on the
experiences
Chinese
are
Lunar
demonic
New Year
deception, especially
celebration
if they are not
night,
a true follower
and
of Christ. In
that
the
was
last
2 days before the
many
Half
people who
Moon
claim to be
Bay
a
shooting,
follower of Christ
because the
will have
predicted
spiritual
two-
experiences.
Those were 2
that
shootings
are in reality
in the Chinese community
demonic.
2 days
God
apart, and
became
the
a
second
man
of the 2
and
shootings
died a
occurred
horrible
on
death
2
at the hand of
farms.
the ruler
That's
of this
because
world,
the predicted
Satan,
2 dirty
and then
bombs in New York
defeated
City,
death
the planes
for
on
you,
9/11,
so
the
that
2
you
of them
too can
that flew into
overcome
the Twin
death,
Two
which is
Towers
the
were on
price
their
that
way to
must
Los
be paid
Angeles.
for sin.
The
It is
2
time
dirty
to repent,
bombs in
which means
New
to
York
change
City
one's ways and turn to God
will
and
be
become a disciple of Jesus.
on the day of the
Do
half
not
moon.
listen to
or follow
March
the
22nd.
example of most
quote-unquote
God is
Christians.
cleverly,
Instead,
brilliantly,
follow the teachings of
masterfully
Jesus,
used
which
this-
most
this
quote-unquote
Sheriff Luna
Christians
to conduct all
ignore.
of this. Like Jesus, you must surrender surrender your life.
Now,
Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay
Sheriff
down your
Luna
life
is the
so
ninth
that you may
Fibonacci
live.
sheriff.
As Jesus said,
from the day
one
that
must
he
die first, like
said
a
that
kernel
parts
of wheat
of
going
Los
into the
Angeles
ground,
looked like an
in order
atomic
to
bomb
then
had been
grow
dropped
and
on it.
produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce
By the
fruit,
way, I believe,
or else like a branch
was
or a
two
tree not producing
main
fruit, they will be
fires.
thrown into the
So
fire.
that's another two.
Jesus was speaking
But,
to quote-unquote
that was the
Christians
ninth
when he said
day
this.
of the year.
One must die
in
the
25,
self
2025,
in order
which
to
is
be
the
born
ninth semi-prime
again.
number.
And like Jesus
he is the
said,
ninth
one
Fibonacci
must be
sheriff.
born again
On the
to
ninth day
enter
of
the
the
kingdom.
year, he
Like
said that the
Jesus,
atomic
you
bombs
must
looked like had been
sacrifice
dropped,
your life
and
for
that
the sake of the coming kingdom.
is
It
exactly
means to
9
do work
weeks,
that involves
to,
some form of sacrifice
yesterday,
and risk.
which is the day of the blood
to
moon
have
lunar
faith
eclipse,
does
which
not
is a prophetic
mean to
sign
intellectually
that is
agree.
9
You
days
need
before
to demonstrate your faith
the
through
predicted
taking
bombs,
action.
the two of them,
To have
in
faith
New York City on the day of
means
the
to
half
trust
moon.
in God's promises. Taking
So
action
Sheriff Luna connects to
demonstrates
all of this.
trust and fear of
What's
the
also very
Lord.
interesting
The
too is that
primary
the day that
reason
Sheriff
that
Luna
the
took
wrath of
office in
God
Los
is
Angeles
coming upon
was
America
the day that
is
Kirstie Alley
quote-unquote
died in
Christians
I think she might have died
that
in
do
Los
not
Angeles,
get
but
what I have
I
just
think she died in
explained.
Florida.
The only
But
reason
regardless,
a Christian is alive
she is
in order
known
to help
for
other people
Look Who's
become
Talking,
Christians and make it
starring
to the
in
kingdom.
the movie
Do
Look
not
Who's
be
Talking
deceived by
and
those on the
Look Who's
political
Talking
left claiming
2.
to be quote-unquote
Part 2.
Christians. There is no such thing as
Okay,
a Christian
and
on today's political progressive
She died on the
left.
same day that Sheriff
Jesus
Luna took
said,
office.
"Do not think I have
That's
come to
astounding
abolish or
because on the
change
day that
any
Sheriff
bit
Luna
of
said
the law
that
or the prophets
parts of Los
the
Angeles
Old
looked
Testament
like an
Bible.
atomic bomb
In other
had been
words,
dropped
the
on
God
it.
of the Old Testament Bible
It
is
was
the
the day
exact
of the Jimmy
same
Carter
God
funeral,
of the New
and if you
Testament
recall,
Bible.
by far
It is
the
essential
biggest story
that you
of
learn about
day
the God
and
of the
funeral
Bible and His ways.
was
the
about
God of
Look
the
Who's
Old
Talking.
Testament Bible is
The
looking
story
to
was
see who
Look
will fear
Who's
Him.
Talking.
And to fear God
Referring
is not
to
the
the
same thing as quote unquote
mysterious conversation
revering
that
or
Barack
honoring
Obama
God
and Donald Trump had
through Christ's ransom
sitting next to each other at the
payment.
funeral.
A
That was the
Christian
big
is
story.
someone who has been redeemed
The world was
and
in
freed
disbelief
from
that these
slavery
two
to
men
sin
were
and
talking and
Satan. In
seemingly
response,
enjoying the
a
conversation
true
and
Christian
joking,
recognizes that their
even
life in this
smiling,
world does not
etc.
belong to them.
So, but the world
and
was
they
wanting to
become
know
a
what
willing
the conversation
slave
was.
to
And so it
Jesus
was,
for the
"Look who's
sake of the
talking,"
kingdom.
was basically
Please leave a
the
like
caption.
and upvote the video.
And that's
once
astounding
this
because of the
prediction has
connection to
come to
Sheriff Luna
pass,
on that
share
day,
this video
who
with
took office
everyone
on the
you
day
know
of the
and more.
death of
Don't
the
stop
actress who
sharing
starred
it
in Look Who's
everywhere in
Talking.
social media. And don't only put the link to
Which
this
makes this
video
more
or another
confirmation
video
of
on this
everything.
channel in comments sections of places you typically visit. But importantly, put the link to the video in
And
places
again,
you never visit,
it
where
involves
people who
Jimmy
don't
Carter,
think like you visit.
who is
if you are
Methuselah,
quote-unquote
whose name
Christian,
means
nothing
when
in
he
terms
dies,
of
destruction.
an evangelism tool compares to this
Because
video
this
with its prediction.
prophetic sign involving
It is
Sheriff
a massive
Luna and
bag of gold.
the conversation
Beware of
between
Jesus'
Barack
warning
and
through the quote-unquote
Trump,
Christian that did nothing with his bag
occurred
of
on the
gold
day,
and was
on the
banished
day-
to
on the
hell.
day of-
Also,
occurred at
read Ezekiel chapter
the
3
Jimmy
and
Carter
33 for this same warning. If you think
Also,
you might
again,
be spending
Obama
too much time
in God's
watching
signs
videos
hints
instead
at
of working and
Obama,
sacrificing for the kingdom,
which is why
through
Sheriff
handing out
Luna-
flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people
Well,
in the same
34
length
actually,
of time
'cause
as
Sheriff
a video.
Luna is the 34th
My flyer is
sheriff,
filled with amazing
and
information
that's
that
the ninth
people need
Fibonacci
to know
number.
right
But 34
now.
also
And it
symbolizes
points
Obama.
people to the
Obama
video
grew
channel.
up in Indonesia,
Now is
which
not
is
the
a
time to be
country,
handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely
which is
based
made up
in
of
error
34
anyway,
provinces.
such as, quote,
And
Jesus
anyway,
loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand
So-
out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields and
there's
busy
more to
parking
that, by
lots,
the way.
and
Why
put them in
34 is
mailboxes.
associated with
Just send the
Obama
file
and a
to
lot
your
of other
local
things,
print shop.
including
You can
the
download the
chapter in
file
the
from the
Bible that
website.
is associated
Please
with
leave a like
judgment on the
and
nations.
upvote the video. And once this prediction
is-
has come to pass,
Well, anyway,
share this video with
which is Isaiah
everyone
chapter
you
34.
know and more.
So,
Don't stop sharing
the
it everywhere
Obama
on social media.
himself
It is
is a
essential
sign
that
that hints at
everyone
bomb, 'cause his name
immediately
is
read the
Obama.
homepage
And
of my
as I've
website,
explained in other videos, God is using this.
asteroidprediction.com. If you
And
are
so
watching
that's
this
why
on the
the
YouTube platform,
story
please note
regarding
that not all of the
Obama
videos are on YouTube.
on the day that
you need to
Sheriff
switch to the
Luna
Odyssey.com or
said that parts of Los
Rumble.com
Angeles County
channel
had looked like a
and
bomb
do
had
it
been
now
dropped
in
on.
case you aren't able to later.